2003, and we're here today to interview Charles Kovel, a survivor of the battle at Iwo Jima. At 0900 on February 19th, 1945, Mr. Kovel was in the first wave of the attacking forces of the United States Marine Corps, 5th Division, 2nd Battalion, 28th Marines, Dog Company, who by D+3 had a 35% casualty rate. And it was Dog Company that was the company that was involved in the famous flag raising at Mount Suribachi, correct? Just some facts about the battle at Iwo Jima. After 2.5 months of bombing, the attack was launched on February 19, 1945. It was the largest amphibious force ever put together for an invasion in the Pacific, and it included approximately 70,000 Marines. There were more Medal of Honor recipients than any other battle in World War II, and 1/3 of all Marines killed in World War II died here, approximately 6,825. And there were 2,500 casualties after the first day of fighting. 25,851 U.S. casualties by the end of the operation, which was 1 in 3. And there were over 20,000 Japanese KIA. The flag raising, which took place on February 23, 1945, was the first time the U.S. flag waved on Japanese territory. The famous flag raising photo turned out to be the most reproduced war photo of all time. Its image raised more money for the United States government than any other single image ever has, which was involved in the 7th War Bond Drive, which over here on the wall maybe we could get a shot of, is what that poster looked like. Iwo Jima was important to the war effort because it held the only airfield between Japan and American bases on Guam and Saipan. As U.S. bombers would fly from these bases to attack Japan, the Jap forces on Iwo Jima would radio their homeland to warn them of the approaching attack. So we had to take the island. In fact, before the island was secured, an American airplane did land on Iwo Jima on D+13, which was March 4th, 1945. On D+21, which was March 12th, 1945, the U.S. Congress proposed a stamp showing the flag raising. And on March 16th, D+36, the island was declared secure. Thereafter, over 2,400 B-29s made emergency landings on the island. As I said, Mr. Kovel was involved in the first wave of the attacking forces on February 19, 1945. That first night, he ended up in some hand-to-hand combat, which we will get into, and was later wounded. So, Mr. Kovel, thanks for your time today, and I appreciate you letting me do this video history of your experiences. First of all, why don't you give me your full name and where you were born and what your birth date was and where you grew up.
Yeah, Charles Kovel, born in Lyons, Illinois, October 28, 1925.
Okay, and did you grow up in the Lyons area, or?
Yeah, I grew up in the Lyons area, yes.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about your entry into the military? Why did you join? How old were you?
I was 18, ready to be drafted, and then when I got downtown, the headlines of Tarara was on the paper, of Tarara just before then, and when I got at the desk there, the guy asked me, he said, "Are you sure you want to go?" He showed me the headlines, and for some reason I just went into the Marine Corps.
Okay. And where did you enlist?
In Riverside.
Riverside, Illinois.
Riverside, Illinois.
At 18 years old, okay. Where was your basic training?
Basic training was in Camp Pendleton, California.
Mm-hmm. Right near San Diego.
San Diego, yeah. Oceanside, California.
Yeah. That's where my son had his basic too, and spent 4 years. What was your training like? What did they have you do? Tell us about basic training in the Marine Corps.
Basic training, well, when you go through boot camp, and then you go into line camp, and after being graduated to be a Marine out of San Diego, we went into Camp Pendleton tent camp. I never was in barracks. I was always in tents.
Mm-hmm.
Even in when I got into San Diego, the parade ground was all tents.
Mm-hmm.
I never was in a building till the hospital
I'll be
in
down.
Hawaii.
And at some point, you had an occupation, a military occupation that was chosen for you, which was that infantry, or what was that?
My training to be
Yes.
was a brown man,
And what is,
BAR man. Yeah.
okay, and what is it, BAR?
It's a high-powered rifle.
Okay.
It has 32 rounds in its magazine. You know,
Okay.
it's a powerful weapon, a heavy weapon.
And it stands for Browning Automatic
Yeah,
Rifle?
Browning automatic.
Okay. And what caliber slug does it shoot? Do you remember? What caliber bullet? Do you remember? It's been a few years. No problem.
Oh
if you don't.
man.
Yeah, I know it's a big one. It's a powerful
Yeah,
weapon.
it's up there on the finger. It's the same as the M1,
Okay.
but it has a bigger, the same magazine.
Okay. Well, we can check that out later too. So
30 caliber.
Was it 30 caliber?
Japs were 25. Yeah.
So what was next after your basic training in Pendleton and you got trained as a BAR rifleman?
Well,
What happened next?
Well, we were shipped to Hawaii, to the big island of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Up in they picked a big hill that was similar with ashes to Iwo Jima, and we trained to take that hill.
Now, when you did your training in Hawaii in this area, did you know at that time that you were going to Iwo Jima?
No, had no idea.
Did they tell you anything about what you were training for?
No.
How long was your training there on the island of Hawaii? Do you remember?
Well, it was just before we went to Iwo Jima, so in time a very, wait, let's see, I was 18 months. I couldn't.
Take your time. Take your time.
When I was with the Marine Corps, I was in Pendleton. I would say about 6 months on Hawaii. Yeah.
About 6 months. Okay, so you did a lot of training.
Mhm. Oh,
Fired
yeah.
a lot of rounds.
Yeah, Camp Pendleton and Hawaii both, yeah.
Okay. Now, why don't you tell us about the events when you left Hawaii? How many of you left together? Tell us about your departure.
They give us a liberty in Hawaii, and then from Hawaii we got aboard ship.
Do you remember the name of the ship that you got
No,
on?
I don't. It was a troop ship, like, Then we went
Did you go
sail toward Iwo Jima, yeah.
So you went straight from Hawaii to the island?
No, we had a landing on Saipan, practice landing.
Okay, and Saipan was already secure at that
Yes,
time?
it was a secured island.
And what all did you do at Saipan?
Just made like a beach landing.
How long were you there?
I would say a couple of days.
Just
got
a couple
back
of days.
and forth.
Okay. And now tell us about when you left Saipan. Did you go straight to Iwo Jima from Saipan, or?
Yeah, when you left Saipan, headed for Iwo, they start letting us know where we're going. We got airplanes would fly over Iwo Jima, take photographs. They would show us the actual island, the cast models of it, where it would look like, and all that. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about the day and night before the landing. I'm sure your ships were somewhat offshore. Was there still shelling going on, naval bombardment? Planes still dropping bombs? Tell us about your thoughts as you're offshore on the ship, knowing what's coming the next day.
Just looking at the island itself, you wonder if anybody could survive that shelling, just pounding and pounding and pounding. Just it's unbelievable. All the ships are firing on it, yeah. Airplanes.
Now, what did you do on ship that night before you went in? How did you prepare yourself for this?
It's hard.
I'm sure it was. Do you remember any thoughts you had at that
You
time?
just think to yourself a lot,
Were there any official briefings prior to the invasion? You know, were you told specific things, goals to accomplish, objectives to accomplish on the ship that night before you left? Did you have any official briefings?
Yeah, like I said, we got most of the briefing is we're traveling to Iwo on the ship a lot of stuff.
And what did your superior officers tell you that you can remember? What were the things they told you or orders that were given? Do you remember any of that?
You get the signals, you know, just whatever they were to go, you know.
Mm-hmm.
To get in the, I landed in an Amtrak with the door that lands in the back.
Okay.
Not the one that we practice a lot with the other ones, the LSD with the in front, but we had the one with the doors in the back.
Okay. And how many guys were on your landing vehicle?
I would say there was about 20 on there.
About 20.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a coxswain or something that drives the boat. Is that right? Okay. Let's see here. So you offload the ship, get in your landing vehicle, you and about 20 others. What's going through your mind?
Yeah.
What's going through your mind now? You're approaching the beach.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking?
Just get on the beach, and whatever happens after that, that's.
What was the landing like? As you approached the beach, was there shelling going on, or what was it like on the beach?
The beach was very quiet, and then all of a sudden we were trying to get up on the hill. There was the bank was about 16 feet of sand before you can get over it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we were all right on the banks of it. You know, and then all of a sudden we got orders to get off of the beach. And then we all started to run, get off, just go forward, and then they start shelling the beach.
How long were you on the beach until you received orders to get off the beach? I realize you didn't have a lot of time to look at watches or anything.
To me, it wasn't very long,
Mm-hmm.
and before we got the order to get off of there.
And how long after you were told to get off the beach did the shelling of the beach start? It's my understanding that the Japanese order of battle was unlike Normandy, where they started letting them have it as soon as they showed up. It's my understanding that at Iwo Jima, the Japanese strategy was to let all of you on, and then really let you have it when the beach was packed with Marines.
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you on the beach until you were told to get off? And how long after you got off did the shelling start?
In time, it'd be hard to explain in time. I mean, it wasn't very long that we're to get up over the hill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
After to get orders to get up.
Was the beach full of troops and equipment
Everything.
when the shelling started? Tell us about what you saw on the beach.
Just a mass of all the other waves coming in, and all the supplies and everything that's to battle, you know, coming in was just totally destroyed right up.
So the beach was totally filled with men and equipment when the shelling started.
And men, yeah.
But you were already off
I
the
was
beach.
up on the higher part of the land. I could see, from where I was, I could see the beach.
Okay. So you had the beach behind you,
Right.
and you had the rest of the island in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that you couldn't see the enemy anywhere.
No,
They were all holed up in caves. And
See, he had a strategy that was unbelievable.
tell us about it.
His strategy to me was just pick you off one at a time from whatever hole or cave he had. Never see them until you approach the cave. You tell them to come out. Whoever was in command, to tell them to come out. You know, if they didn't come out, you flamethrower, then throw dynamite. Then just the main thing they were doing is you're going ahead. They would cover up every hole.
Oh, they would.
So most of the Japanese, I think, were buried alive.
Yeah. So what progress, now you were in Dog Company, correct? What progress did Dog Company make that first day?
I would say it was from just on top of the beach, the island ain't very big. It just when we got just progress was, I would say, about 50 yards to the hill, to be close to the hill as possible. So that, if you were closer to the hill, that they couldn't see you, out in the open, then you'd be more right by them.
So was most of the carnage and the shelling and that taking place behind you?
Yes, and some of onto us too, because people don't realize the island was small, and at the point where on the hill is very narrow. So the beach and the area, but until the other side of the hill isn't very big. So the shelling was also.
What dog company, those of you who had cleared the beach, what did you do to protect yourself during the shelling? Were you digging foxholes, or what were you doing?
Get in any socks or behind some big rocks. The closer you are to the hill, you were better off. There was more rocks and stuff there, like. Because after the hill, there was an airfield, just flat out land, for the airfield.
Were there Japanese planes on that airfield?
There was just wreckage.
Wreckage
Just
from the bombings.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could see forward to the airfield and the flat ground in front of you. You were protecting.
To the left was the hill. Yeah.
To the left was Mount Suribachi.
Yeah.
Okay. And then most of the island was off to your right.
Yeah.
As you look back towards the beach, where all the shelling was going on, what were your fellow Marines doing on the beach? Were they trying to dig into the sand, or tell us about what you saw to the rear?
It was such a chaos that it was just like I don't know how to explain, just a massive disorientation of it's hard to explain, Just the shelling was just tearing everything up, and everybody was coming in,
Yeah. While the shelling was taking place, were there still Marines and equipment coming ashore?
All the time.
So they didn't pause at all?
No, didn't pause at all.
And how long, did it take days or hours to get all this ashore, or what's your remembrance of that?
Well, I would say they finally got a bulldozer up the sand lake, and they could get the tanks in that to come up on top to get over the hill, though. The main thing was to get up the hill.
Okay.
Up the.
So even when you had all the tanks and equipment and 70,000 Marines, you still didn't really know where the enemy was, did you?
No.
Because there was nothing in sight.
No, I know. All you do is just. They had their firepower. Their rifles were smokeless.
Okay.
So if they did fire out of a hole in the vegetation, you couldn't see it. You'd have to get right on top of it.
I'm sure. Well, I shouldn't say I'm sure. I wasn't there, but wasn't there a feeling of frustration when you guys are all on this island and your fellow Marines are being killed and you don't even know where the enemy is?
No,
you can't see them?
It is.
I mean,
it's,
go ahead.
It just don't know where they're at. You're just at their mercy as far as I'm concerned.
So, that first night you were dug in,
Right.
past the beach, on this hill, did the shelling continue at night?
Yes, there was shelling all the time. There was no stopping from them. Because at night they could come out of their hole, set up their mortars, what did they want, go back in before you could get a beat on them,
Now, as nightfall occurs, it's February 19th, 1945, it's the first night, shelling is still occurring. So you really, I guess, couldn't hear any enemy movement because of the shelling going on.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened to you personally on that first night.
Well, we got to a certain point there, right next to the hill, and as it was getting dark, but the flares, they were shooting flares all the time.
The enemy was?
Yeah.
Japs?
No, we were.
We were.
Shooting flares, keeping it lighted all the time. You could see all the time shadows of the flares going up and down, see. And then we got to a point where next to the hill, they put barbed wire out, and I was on the flank end of the hole, and I was in a deep hole.
Now this was probably in the Green Beach area, the
Right,
beachhead
yeah.
closest to Suribachi.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and I was in a hole flares were going off and on, see?
Mhm.
And I was in a hole, and it was a deep hole, you know, from the sand like, and I was at the front top facing the hill. And I had
Anybody else in the foxhole with you?
No.
Okay.
There was just next to me holes and all right down the line.
Okay.
And then as the flares were gone, it got dark, and one of the guys met our house says, "Kovel, he's behind you, you know." So I could see him on the back of the hill, you know. He had to come down
Who did?
the hole like.
Who did?
The Japanese had to come down,
So
and I was on the upper heart facing her. So as he got down to the other point, and then when he went to approach me with his vein, and he cut my pants, you know, my left leg cut the pants off.
So you had a Jap soldier that had snuck close enough to actually get in your foxhole.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And he went to go at you with his bayonet and cut your...
Yeah, he made his trust, and then I also had with bar. I knocked him down, like, you know.
With your
when he made
BAR?
his trust, I made my to hit him with the gun, you know.
Mhm.
And then we tangled, you know. And one thing about it, he was talking, and I couldn't understand what he was saying, you know, just mumbling all the time. And my thing was to keep him as quiet as possible, you know. In the nighttime, you don't want to disturb him.
Because it gives away your position?
Yeah, just didn't want anybody to know where you're at, you know. So he was mumbling that, and I still couldn't keep him quiet. So he had a helmet on. I took his helmet off, and I was beating him on the head, you know, and he was still mumbling. So then when I hold him, the hole was there. My knife was on top. I had my knife on the beer on the top of the sand, and I sort of held him, dragged him apart like that, and then I cut him in the throat.
Okay.
And when I cut him in the throat, all the blood hit me right in the face, you know, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when I got when they come down from the interview, the flag, Pierce interviewed me, and he says, "What happened to you?" And he's on the pants.
Who interviewed you?
Pierce.
Who's that?
He was an officer in the Marine Corps.
Do you remember his rank and full name?
He was right at that article that you'll see there. He's interviewed, you know, just talking to me. And he wondered what happened, you know, and the blood was all over me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the blood was still on me till I got shot. Never washed. Don't remember sleeping. Don't remember eating or nothing. Just
Survival.
Just survival. Just.
And from this Japanese soldier that you killed, you got this flag here on
Right.
your right. Why don't you hold that up and show
When the
us?
light come up, and the daylight come out, you know, I was looking at him, and I took his wallet out, and he had a picture, and his wife was on the picture, and 2 kids. And then this flag he had on his thing around his side there, you know.
Why don't you hold that flag up so
Yeah.
we can see your flag?
That flag, this was his, you know. And I took that off of him, and I kept it with me all the time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know anything how this works, but who took this dead Japanese soldier out of your foxhole? How did the Marine Corps handle that, or did they just leave him there?
Yeah.
They just left him there. So the next day, now it's February 20th, it's the next day. What'd you do? Tell me about the next day on the island.
The next day, I was just sitting in the holes underneath cover rocks and foxholes, just sitting there.
Is the shelling continuing?
And the shelling,
They're still firing.
Yeah, shelling was still coming. And they for the first time, they had some kind of big mortar, a usual big mortar, make a lot of noise,
Mm-hmm.
and it would explode. But they were shelling all the time, and our airplanes would be shelling the hill all the time too.
How about the naval ships? Were they still shelling as well?
Just at time of movement, if you made a movement or something, but where I was, they couldn't shell because it was so narrow.
Okay,
At
there
the
wasn't a
point,
whole
at
lot
the
of
base of
island
the
there.
hill.
Yeah.
So the shelling would probably be on the other part of the island continuously.
And the reason for that is because where you were at, the island is very narrow, and it has the Mount Suribachi, and that was about it.
It was narrow, then the hill started, yes.
Yeah. So, were you able to make any more advancement that next day, or?
No, like I said, it was so small, I would say, that's why I said, for the days before the flag was up, you'd swear you never even moved after you got next to the hill.
Mm-hmm.
All you did is face the hill and hope, you know, you could see anybody out of the cave or that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and all the whole. They would roll rocks down sometime.
They were that close to you.
Yeah.
And how big were these rocks?
Big
I
ones.
mean, like boulder-sized rocks?
Oh, big boulders, yeah, whatever the airplanes probably bombed got loose, they would roll it down.
So the enemy was that close, yet you couldn't see them.
That you couldn't see them. In fact, it's hard to say, but you finally realize that after a while they figured they had caves, and they were underneath you actually.
They had a whole network of
island,
caves, didn't
yeah.
they? Where they could
Underneath.
actually go from one end of the island
One
to the
under
other.
the other,
And underneath.
and you get the feeling that they're underneath you too.
So this whole next day, February 20th, the Japanese are still shelling the Marines on the beach and on your hill and all that, and there really was no progress made the next day on the 20th.
No, I would say very little progress, though, until
Okay.
they wanted to put the flag up.
Now, were you still in this same foxhole?
No, up ahead, move a little towards some rocks and closer to the hill.
Okay, and every time a Marine would move forward, would he dig another foxhole again, or
No, you didn't have to dig where we were.
because of the
There was
hill?
more
and the-
vegetation and rocks and that.
Okay, so you were actually now into some area where there
Yeah.
was vegetation.
Yeah.
And the enemy's also out there in that vegetation.
Mhm.
And the shelling going on means that you can't hear them moving around, correct? So you really don't know what's just a few feet in front of you?
No, you don't know. All you know is the fellows by you close to you, that's all you know.
And what did you see right out there in front of you? I realize you couldn't see the enemy, but...
You just look at that darn hill, you know,
Mhm.
and see if you see any movement or something. That just you know, if anything would come out of, if they were come out of caves or something, anything that moved, anything on the hill, you'd shoot at that.
Now, it was about this time, like the second or third day, where dog companies started to go up Mount Suribachi, correct? Is that your understanding?
Yeah.
That it was the dog company that went up. And then on February 23rd is when they raised the flag at the top of Mount Suribachi. Did you see the flag, the first or the second flag go up?
Yes.
Did you see both?
Both of them, yes.
Okay. What did that mean to you? How did that make you feel?
Well,
Take your time. It's okay.
the flag was home,
Yes.
was America.
Yes.
Understand that? People never understand.
Why do you say that?
The flag represented, well, you're winning anyhow, you know, something. But it was very, very something.
And up and down the battle line there, were the Marines cheering? And could everyone see it down at your end of the beach?
Well, it was all in the hole. You know, you'd be by your own hole, whatever it was. You know, you're looking up there. You know.
And did everyone have an opportunity to see it up and down the line? And
I would say yes. If you were just at the right angle up there, you could see the top of the hill. Yes.
And February 23rd was the flag raising.
Mm-hmm.
Was the shelling still continuing on the beach?
Not on the beach. Mostly, well, it's hard to say. Like right around the area where they knew, you know, hard to explain, but they were worried more about this coming from the northern end. That's or the shelling that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the Japs would shoot mortars, a lot of mortars.
So that means they were still pretty close, because
Oh,
mortars
yeah.
didn't travel that far.
See, they could come out of their hole wherever they was, set up the tube, fire, and go back in. See. And then every now and then they'd come out and let some rounds go. It was all the time, continuous.
Now, did they do that in the daylight, or just at night, or both?
Both.
They would fire their mortars. When the flag went up, and there was this feeling amongst the Marines that there's this symbol of home, was there any change in the rapidity of fire from the Japanese? I mean, did it just, while the flag was going up and the excitement of seeing the flag, did the shelling slow, stop, speed up? Do you
No,
remember?
it was about just about average, you know.
So it just continued at the same
That's all,
rate
yeah, it
during
was
the whole
just
time?
One continuous coming out and whatever they wanted to do with their mortars and stuff, you know, go back. They never exposed themselves very long.
I realize you're there and your main concern is to stay alive, but could you see in your fellow Marines any kind of reaction to the flag as a fighting force?
Well, you wouldn't stand up.
Sure.
I mean,
I realize you couldn't stand up and cheer.
No.
It'd be the end of your day right there.
If the only time I stood up is to run to the next
Sure.
area, that's all. But that, like I said.
I mean, but were like your fellow Marines, was there yelling or?
Yeah, you can hear them.
And do you remember anything specifically that people yelled or?
No.
Okay. So you did see the flags, and you were just pretty much down at the base of
At
Mount
the base of the
Suribachi
hill,
then?
right, just where they went up, yeah.
Did you know any of the flag raisers?
Not personally, but I knew them from in camp. A lot of them, you know, their faces, familiar face. Like I said, I can look at that picture, and I know the face, but I don't know the name. Why do I know them faces? I can never understand it.
Well, we'll take that down off the wall when we
Yeah.
get done, and you can maybe talk a little bit more about it.
Just the fellas, personally, your platoon, whatever you work with, them are your basic people.
Do you know how did, like Ira Hayes and some of these guys who went up and did the flag raising, how were they selected from Dog Company? I mean, how were they selected? Was it just at random?
I would say because they had more of a full platoon.
Okay.
I would say that, yeah.
All right. Let's cover the events between the flag raising on February 23rd, 1945, and the day you were wounded. Can you talk to us about what progress was made over those next many days? What happened?
It was like for me, it was just you weren't moving very far, just so many feet or so, you know, and you looked like, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but time would just have to go by for all day long, you know.
So each day there would be a little bit of progress, probably measured in feet and yards rather than anything else.
Absolutely, yes.
And this just went on for day after day. And during this day after day, the shelling
they
continued?
actually crossed the island the first day. Some Marines actually crossed the island the first day.
Where there was no resistance? And that was down in your end towards Suribachi because it was so narrow?
See, me being where I was on the left flank this way, and the guys that were on the other head went across. They were chosen to go right on the heads.
Oh, okay. So did they get all the way past that airfield, or were they farther down to the right?
Between the airfield and the hill, there was very short yards between there. Just actually right around the hill.
And what was the terrain like on the island beyond the airfield? Was it hilly? Was it mountainous?
It was a flat out airfield. Started because the island is so small, the runway would run right to the base of the shoreline, right to the other, you know. Just where the airfield was.
So it was pretty flat all the way across to the other shoreline?
Yeah.
Okay. So between the 23rd and March 1st, when you were wounded, it was just more of the same, day after day. Shelling, taking a few more yards of ground. Was there equipment still coming on shore?
Oh yeah, equipment coming, everything coming.
Where was all this equipment going? I mean, it seemed like there was almost no room for it.
Just right on the airfield, right on the open.
So they took it right on the airfield?
Right on the airfield.
And the Japanese were shelling that as well, I'm assuming. Tell us about what you saw out on the airfield. What did you see out on the airfield as the Marines are moving equipment?
All the stuff coming in, you know.
What kind of stuff?
Cranes, dozers, ammunition, food, everything. Tents are even going up. You'd never believe as time goes by what they accomplished.
And while they're setting up all this on the airfield, the Japanese are shelling it?
They're shelling
as well as you guys on the beach and on the hill?
Mostly, the shelling would be mortars.
Okay.
I think the big artillery would come out in the evening more because it was dark, so they couldn't observe them from the ships.
How long after the February 19th landing would you say it was until progress was made, where infantry could get in behind some tanks and start to move forward and so on. How long did that take?
Well, I mean, it just a continuous coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It just all night long and on. It just coming and bringing stuff. Just continuous cycle.
Uh-huh. And at some point, you Marines were able to start moving forward. How long did that take? How many days did that take?
Well, where I was, our job was like just what we did for the hill and that. See, then the 4th and the 3rd was to go the other way, see?
4th and 3rd
So they were moving more, gaining more yardage going toward the north.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? There,
Yeah.
they were going, trying to get in more and more.
And you're talking about...
For the days that I remember, I was still at the base of the hill, even after the flag was raised up.
Right.
Then my orders were to go, attack the other side then.
Okay. Tell us about those orders and what you did when you got those orders. Where did you go?
Well,
What did you do?
I couldn't remember the time after the flag was raised that we got an order to go on the other side of the around the ocean to go toward the north then.
Okay, so you eventually then crossed the airfield to the other shoreline?
Yeah, that was way beyond, yeah.
Okay, and how was that done? I mean, tell us about how the Marines set that up. I mean, was that all infantry? Was it tanks and infantry? How was the progress made? What was the American...
Well, there were 3 divisions on there, see?
Yes?
And they would make their move so far, and then the other ones, and then we were on the other side, we'd make so much. And then you'd be called to advance, see?
Mm-hmm.
After they knew what was going on, you'd be called to advance then.
Okay, and was this done all with infantry, or did you have any tank support, or what all was involved with your movement, your advancing movements?
There were tanks on there, but mostly the island was such that it wasn't maneuverable for tanks. It was all hilly and rocky and all that.
And the tanks couldn't move around
No,
very well?
they were gone.
Okay. So you just made slow, steady progress over the next week or so after the flag raising. Still taking a lot of incoming fire, or
A lot of incoming fire.
rifle fire as well as mortars? Or?
Mortar, some shelling, yes. A lot of,
And what about rifle fire?
yeah, all the time.
So they're just right out there in front of you. Could
Right.
you see any of the enemy yet?
No. He was coming out, shouting from a hole, a cave.
So you're on this island.
If you could pick out, smart enough to pick out what would be a cave, then you'd watch it, But
And did
actually, you'd have to get almost on the cave to know that was, they were in there. They never come out in the open. They did a couple times later on, but while I was there, they never come out in the open.
So you're on Iwo Jima for a week, taking shell fire, mortar fire, rifle fire. You've been there a week, and you, other than the Jap you killed in your foxhole, you still haven't seen the enemy.
No.
Is that right?
No. He was a smart general.
So they were incredibly dug in.
Incredibly, but he never had to my knowledge of him, he never had a frontal attack on you. If he built something, if you were coming from the side, he had one from the other side. At all angles, he could get you.
Okay, let's pause for a second, okay? All right, are we on? Okay. All right, so for a week, you guys are making a little bit of progress, shelling, mortar fire, rifle fire, and so on. It's now D+10. It's March 1st. Tell us what happened the day you were wounded.
We got it to a point at a big hill, and as we were advancing in there, we got pinned down in a certain area from rifle fire from all over, and my officer Armstrong told me to try and go get a tank. If you can get a tank, come forward, and we'll shell the hill, that whole hill, because they figured in that big hill there'd be a lot of caves in that, So I ran back, and I got a tank.
How far did you have to go back? How far did you have to run back?
I would say about 400 yards back.
Okay.
Yeah. And I brought the tank up to a certain position, and I couldn't get the tank to come closer to us because there was a big tank ditch trap.
Anti-tank ditch?
Ditch there, yeah. So when you get a tank, the only way you get orders for him, you talk on the telephone.
Right.
He don't open up no doors or no nothing. It's all telephone. And then when he would face the hill, you tell him about the hill there, then he would fire tracers, you know, just to knock anything all apart, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And fire tracers. Then I had him shoot a smoke sight, and that covered the area up. And just as the smoke was coming to cover the tank, then he hit me.
So you were on a telephone
Yeah,
to
when
the...
I got hit.
Okay, and is that telephone attached to the outside of the tank?
In the back of the tank on the outside, yeah.
Okay, so you're behind the tank, on the telephone to the guy inside the tank,
Yeah,
and then that's when you were wounded
yeah. And then when I got hit, he just turned around
and went back.
and went back. Yeah. And I later all night.
Okay, so this happened during the daytime,
Yeah.
when you were wounded.
Pretty close toward evening, yeah, when that.
So towards evening, you got wounded.
I got
Where were you
wounded.
shot?
Huh?
Where were you
I
shot?
was shot right through the right hip.
To the right hip.
Right hip, yeah.
Okay, and tell us about what happened when after the tank left, you're laying there.
Yeah, I later, yeah.
What happened?
I just got next to the bunch of rocks and that, and I just stood there all night.
Okay,
Didn't know nobody around or nothing.
so the force that you were with was on the other side of this anti-tank ditch?
Yeah, they probably come back out of there.
Mm-hmm. So they had retreated back and you were out there all by
I
yourself?
was out with myself, yeah.
All right, tell us about the next day.
Well, the next day, as it was getting bright, you don't know, you know, what, you're just sitting there, you know, laying there rather, and then I finally realized they were picking people up with that little weasel Jeep, it's called a Jeep, you know, and they picked me up on that, and then they took me back to the shore.
So this Jeep would go around and pick up the wounded and the dead?
Yeah, that's what picked me up, yeah.
And was the Jeep taking fire?
Oh, I would say so, rifle fire, yes.
So they're still shooting at you while you're being loaded on this Jeep?
No matter what, whenever you move, you guarantee there would be a...
You attracted attention?
You attract it.
Okay. So tell me about your Jeep ride. How did they, how were you loaded onto this Jeep? Where did the Jeep take you?
But they got like stretchers on place, you know.
Okay.
Then they took right to the beach.
And how far back was the beach now? How far did you have to travel?
I can mileage on a reality so small. I would say it's about a mile.
Maybe a mile.
Yeah, probably about the middle part of the island on that day.
Were you in a lot of pain at this time?
Well, after you get shot, you got a morphine needle you take.
So you had that with you?
Yeah, and then you got what you call sulfamilamide powder. You pour that all over in your wounds, and when I got back to the beach, they undress you, take every your clothes off, and they spray you. But in the meantime,
what did they spray you with?
Whatever disinfectant it was.
Okay.
And as far as the flag that I have, that I kept it as they undressed me, that I kept it in my hand. That's the only thing I got off the island with.
Because they would strip you naked?
Strip me naked before they put me on take me to the hospital ship out on the shore, and then hoist you up in a hospital ship.
And they would strip you naked just to clean you, make sure you were clean everywhere?
Yeah, when you get on the ship, then yeah.
And what clothes did they put back on you after they
Just
disinfected
your, like, kimono, the white, you know, just, like they do in a hospital, your own,
like a hospital gown
yeah,
kind of a thing? All right, so you went from the beach on board, what kind of vehicle, craft?
It was probably an LST.
And then they took you to...
Yeah, right to the ship, and then they hoist you up from there, up aboard.
Now, is that a hospital ship?
It was a hospital ship.
Do you remember the name of the hospital ship?
No, I don't.
Okay. And tell me what happened after you got hoisted on board the hospital ship.
Well, you got like bunks, you know, they put you step, and you just lay there. They didn't do nothing, you just lay there, that's all.
How often did they come and check on you?
But there's so many, you don't even know it was just continuous, you know. And then they gave me crutches, you know. So if I wanted to try to get around the way with that. And then you got, if you wanted to go, you can go to the burial. The people that were dying on the hospital ship,
Yes.
you can go to the burial, and then they cast them overside and do that.
Mm-hmm.
So then it took me to Guam from there.
Okay. When you were on the hospital ship, how many men were on there? I mean, was the ship just full of them?
Totally loaded. Just a chaos, that's all.
And because there were so many wounded and dying on the hospital
Right.
ship, you really didn't get much medical attention?
No. I wasn't such a thing, it was just a hole in me, that's all.
And did the bullet go all the way through?
Right through, yeah.
Right
And
through.
when it went through, she hit the arc of the bone, in the pelvis bone like,
Yes.
and she twisted sideways. And when she twisted sideways, when she come out, she tore a big chunk. And I could never realize why I got shot in the front, that the pain was bad. I thought I got hit in the back.
I see.
So finally they realized, you know, when they really, on Guam, they said, well, you got shot in the front.
So you're on this hospital ship and it takes you back to the island of Guam. How long did that take?
It didn't take very long. I would say a couple of days, 2 days.
Couple days.
Yeah.
And what was the food like? What was the treatment like for the wounded on board?
What was the treatment?
Yeah, I mean, how often did you get fed? How was the food? Tell us about the treatment on board the hospital ship.
It's mostly like rations and stuff, you know, I mean, because they ain't gonna cook and all that. You gotta understand what I mean, this is nothing but a chaos. So you mostly like eat a ration. And at that time, you don't eat that much. You know, you just sit there and wonder what's, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's so many that when you're seeing everybody, you don't need no help. You want them to get the help.
Mm-hmm.
Taken care of.
Now, was your wound painful? Did you have to take pain medication at all for this, or?
Yeah, they give me some kind of pills, you know.
Okay, and how often a day did they see you?
Well, whenever you wanted it, they'd give it in.
So you would just contact, were there female nurses and male nurses, or what was it like?
On the ship was mostly a male that I was around,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, mostly male. Till on Guam it was all female men.
Okay, so were you taken off the hospital ship onto Guam?
Onto Guam, yeah.
All right, tell us about that. Were you able to walk off on your crutches, or did
No,
they carry you?
with crutches.
Okay.
I was
and-
on crutches all the time.
All right, so you got off the hospital ship and went to a hospital on Guam.
Mm-hmm. Then
And
they thoroughly clean you up, get you really, really cleaned up and all that.
scrubbed you up, huh?
Yeah.
And how long were you there?
I would say about 3 days, I think. And then they shipped me to Hawaii.
Okay, so you got out.
When you're on Guam, you're in tents. There was no buildings. It was tent hospital. And I'll always remember the people on Guam are I think of Catholic faith, Chamaros. They call them Chamaros. And these little kids would come by you all the time, you know, and talk to you in a tent.
And they knew English?
Yeah.
And so you were there for about 3 days. Then you were loaded on another hospital ship, able to board it.
No, I flew to Hawaii.
Oh, you flew to Hawaii.
Flew to Hawaii, yeah.
On what kind of airplane?
I would say it was the DC-9 they had then or something, just that two-motor, they just stripped, you know, just put
Yeah.
you in there.
And how many men would get on one of these DC-9s at a time?
I don't know, it was just loaded. It would be all stretchers on each side like that all the way through, just bunks like with stretchers, you know, all just filled up.
And so you flew to the big island of Hawaii?
Hawaii.
All right, tell us about your arrival at Hawaii.
Well, we got to the hospital. It was Aiea Heights, it was called.
Aiea Heights?
Uh-huh. And then they just come and give me your pills and just keep you cleaned up and all that stuff, you know.
Was the food any better there?
Yeah, the hospital was a little better.
Yeah, a little better. What did they give you to eat? Do you remember?
No, this military food, whatever it is.
Was it like going to Sills, huh, or something?
No.
Okay. So how long were you in the hospital?
9 months. After Hawaii, they flew me to Oakland, California.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Oakland, California, just just enough time to get me ready, then they shipped me to Great Lakes.
Okay. And when you got to Great Lakes, what happened then? And this was a whole 9-month period from the
Yeah.
day you were wounded till
Yeah.
so you got discharged? Is
Till
that right?
I got discharged on crutches. And the way they discharged it then, it was convenience of the government to make room for other guys want to come home, be in their hospitals and their home.
Mhm.
So that's why I got discharged on crutches.
So you were discharged on crutches at Great Lakes Naval Station?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the date?
45, I don't know really.
So would have been like November or something? Latter part of 19...
It was, just the president died. Roosevelt.
He died in April of 45.
April?
Yeah.
No, it
So
was later than that.
Because he died just before the war in Germany ended, which was May of 45.
But I know that was important, that he died there.
What was the mood like amongst everyone when
What was
President Roosevelt died? What was the mood?
Very saddening as far as I was concerned.
It's my understanding that FDR was really beloved by all of America. So you were
As
just...
a commander-in-chief,
Yeah.
he was.
What was the thinking and thoughts about what's this Harry Truman going to be like? Was there any talk about Harry Truman, who took his place?
Not much.
Yeah.
Just that he was a captain.
Uh-huh. He was the new man in charge, huh?
Yeah.
So you were discharged at Great Lakes Naval Base, and then you went back to the Lyons area?
Right.
Your family was still in Lyons, so you didn't have too far to go from there, did you? I understand that many, many years later, you went back to Iwo Jima.
Mm-hmm.
When was that? When did you go back?
The 50th anniversary.
Okay, so that would have been 1995.
Right. When mother, just before mother.
That's about right.
Tell us about that experience of going back.
Well, it was it's pretty hard. You wanted to land on it, and I wanted to go to the beach. And they had their ceremonies, you know, with the Japanese visiting, talking. I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to head toward the beach. So me and my son and another fellow from Manuka, what's his name? Thompson.
Oh,
He come along with us, and I just wanted to go to that beach.
What did you do once you got to the beach?
Well, then they give us little vials if you wanted to take some sand home, no bigger than a cigar. But they were loading up bags and stuff, and that you know darn well they can let you get on their plane. It'd be way more than people. So after I was on the island there, I wanted to get to the top of the hill.
Sarabachi?
Sir, I wanted to get that view too, so we were rating on that certain area there, and the Japanese were preparing to go on the island. They first. They wanted their ceremony first. So we waited, they got on the hill, and they got all their, then the trucks finally picked us up and took us to the top of the hill.
So you were able to take a vehicle up
Yeah.
to the top of Mount
Yeah.
Sarabachi. Now, is there a monument or something
Yes,
up there?
there is, yeah.
What does that look like?
The monument's, it's like a big gravestone, you know, marble, whatever it is, and right is carved, Dog 2nd Battalion 28 Marines.
And that was your
That's on the
your
monument,
unit.
right on top of the hill.
Yeah, and that was your unit.
Yeah. And that marks the spot right behind it where the flag was put in.
I'm assuming there is a flag waving there.
Yeah, we had a flag raised, yeah.
And from the top,
Our flag does not fly ever on Iwo Jima, just for ceremonies, that's all. The
Because-
Japanese flag flies on all.
because we gave the island back to you. From the top of Mount Sarabachi, can you see the whole island?
Right. See, all the way back, all the way to the hill.
Is there an airfield still there?
Yeah. The one, the first airfield near the hill is still there. That's the only thing on the island is the airfield and a couple of buildings. That's all is there.
And a lot of black sand, huh?
Well, what they did, you'd never believe it, it wasn't a rough terrain anymore. They just bulldozed everything just about like. It was unbelievable to see that you could just, and they planted a certain seed under, I could see the whole thing.
So the actual hill that provided cover for you for days and days was gone.
Yeah, everything. They just dozed everything up.
I see. As we conclude this, is there anything that you would like to say or tell us about that I did not bring up or did not cover?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. As we're leaving the hill in the trucks, I didn't want to stay there in the nighttime. I was glad we flew off. I didn't want to spend a night in Iwo Jima.
I can understand why.
I just had the feeling they're there.
Did you see any Japanese on the island?
Yes, there was quite a few that come.
What was the mood between the Japs and
Well,
you
like
Marines?
I said, I didn't participate, and I went to the beach.
So you didn't have any interaction
No,
with
I
any?
didn't talk with them at all. No.
Let me ask you this as kind of a final question. And if you need some time to think about it, that's fine. What is your most vivid, lingering memory of your experience on Iwo Jima?
The most lingering? I would say the flag raising. That's
Anything else you want to add about that? Anything else you want to talk about at all that I haven't brought up? Or?
not necessarily.
All right, well,
But
go ahead.
the only thing I give,
Take your time. It's okay.
World War II, I don't give credit to the military as much as I would with the people that helped build equipment, did everything. America was America.
It's okay.
It'll never be like that again.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. Tremendous people then, even the kids. If you look back at history, even the children participate in winning the war.
It was civilians and military together, wasn't it?
Right.
I know.
Military and the American people.
I know I've even read how housewives and all were to save the drippings of their grease because of the glycerin for ammunition and so on.
Right.
It was an incredible effort by the civilian population and those of you who fought in the military. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Well, I want to thank you so very much for what you did and for spending this time with us today. Okay? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we forgot a couple things to. Why don't you tell us about? Actually, you got hit a couple times.
Yeah.
Besides
well,
being wounded, tell us about that.
Trying to get up the hill in the van, I got hit, my gas mask got hit, and then a few yards further, I got hit right in the middle of the chest, and it got hurt in my magazine. I carried my first magazine in my chest pocket, in my little Marine Corps pocket. I would take them, and it just went right in, it just stopped the bullet from going right through.
Wow, did the magazine have a dent in it and
Yes,
everything?
it did. Yes,
Did it still
Yes, it
work?
did. Huh?
Could you still use that
No,
magazine?
the spring was, the first couple of bullets popped out. Where the dentation of the thing comes to, there's a spring in there then.
So it saved your life.
Yes, it did, yeah.
And then you said you had a belt or something?
Yeah, a big belt, yeah. It was heavy. It was a double layer of magazines, right around you like that.
And how many bullets were in a magazine?
32.
And how many magazines were on this belt, remember?
I think there was 24 of them around there.
So you had quite a bit of weight.
It was your own bandolier, like, you
Sure.
carry around.
Well, we've got some items here I'd like for you to hold up one at a time and talk about. This first one here is a picture of you when you joined the Marines.
Hold it up, Dan.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold that up and hold it nice and still, and we'll zoom in on that. And that's your official Marine Corps picture.
Mm-hmm.
So that was taken when then?
And Oceanside, California, on a Liberty.
Okay. So that would have been, was that been late 44 or would that
Yeah,
been
late.
late 1944? And this next picture you have is of your dog company?
Yeah, this is the Dog Company, 2nd Battalion, 28 Marines, yeah.
And Mr. Kovel is right there.
Hang on. Keep your finger in. Okay.
Okay.
And your next item,
You can see the timing on here, 10:45, the flag went up,
yes?
and then 2 hours later is when they come down the hill, they come by me and interview me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Hold that article up. What does that headline say there?
You can hold it still.
And there's your Purple Heart
Yep.
from being wounded in the hip.
You got it?
Was that set in the mail?
Okay. And this is a picture of the first wave landing at Iwo Jima
Right.
on February 19th, 1945. Now, is this like a copy of official military photograph? I assume this is like a copy of an official military
Right,
photograph?
yeah, from the,
And Mount Suribachi's in the background.
yeah.
What else is there? And what's your next picture here? Is
Cemetery,
this is the
this is the
5th Marine Division, right?
5th Marine Division Cemetery.
And while this cemetery was being built, the battle was still going on.
Right, absolutely true. Till the last one was buried.
So, let's see, were you still on the island?
No, I was only 11 days. This here was about, I think, about 36 days.
Okay. All right.
Newspaper article?
Yeah, let's see your newspaper article there.
The newspaper article, Dan.
See, this is only our division, our cemetery. There's 2 more divisions under, 4th and 3rd.
Yeah.
What is it on?
Let's see your newspaper article.
Oh,
Yanks find 100 fortified caves on Iwo Jima volcano.
And then it talks about him in that hand-to-hand combat.
okay. You wouldn't believe it, but now they got TV showing everything. This is the only thing that come in area in Chicago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's get that
From the
thing.
island.
Yeah.
And all the people that knew me,
I bet it was.
Who's going to show us?
what that?
We have a few other items you're going to show us there. Okay.
These would be friends of mine in my company that were former paratroopers. These are guys that were on other islands before they got thrown into the 5th Marine Division.
Okay.
This is a photograph. My cook, he wanted to go to the top of the island, so he got to go up there.
So this is your cook up at the top of Mount Suribachi.
Huh?
This is your cook,
Yeah, my cook, yeah,
It's at the top
very
of-
good friend of mine, very good.
and he's at the top of Mount Suribachi
Yeah,
there.
he was the leader of the reunion all the time.
Up next.
This is my platoon, San Diego, 1944.
Platoon 69, United States Marine Corps, San Diego.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know what else.
Let's go ahead
I
and see
don't know
that.
what else would be interesting.
Let's, what do you have here? Let's see. Okay, go ahead and hold that up. Go ahead and show that to the camera. That's a letter from the Marine Corps
Right.
dated May 15th, 1945. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Kovel, the following information is furnished as a supplement to our previous communication regarding your son, Private First Class Charles Kovel. Your son sustained a wound of the thigh and on 20 March 1945 was reported as being in a hospital for further treatment. You may be sure that he is receiving the best of medical care. Your anxiety is realized and you are assured that should any further information be received regarding his welfare, it will be forwarded to you promptly. Please notify this headquarters of any change in your address. Sincerely yours, M.G. Craig, First Lieutenant, USMC. So that's a letter telling your parents you were wounded.
Yeah. One thing, I don't know if other services do as much as the Marine Corps, but your officers are very concerned with you and would help you to the last thing of everything, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were very good. Even if it wasn't your officer, any presiding.
And then on the next page you have another letter about your Purple Heart, I think. Show that to the camera.
I think this is the one, isn't it?
Yeah. That's dated 27 March 1945, and it's about his being awarded the Purple Heart Medal. In the name of the President of the United States and by direction of the Secretary of Navy, the Purple Heart Medal is awarded by the Commanding General, Fleet Military Force Pacific, to Private First Class Charles Kovel, U.S. Marine Corps Reserve, for wounds received as a result of any enemy action in the Asiatic Pacific Theater on 1 March 1945.
I don't think I'd have happened if it wasn't for Mother. This is the one you want? This citation for the wounds and everything?
Yeah, let's see what that is. So that's from the Naval Station at Great Lakes, being awarded the Purple Heart Medal on 1 March 1945. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it in there.
Okay, guess we're done. Other items here. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is the first wave on Iwo Jima, and I was very fortunate to be in this position because we were told to get off the beach before the initial shelling got everybody. When I went back, I just wanted to go to the beach and just look around.
Is that you in the picture?
Yes. My son Frank Stafford.
50th reunion.
So that was taken in 1995.
Couldn't believe it, but there was about 800 Marines and 800 veterans, and then everybody there, and nobody went to the beach.
They all went to the ceremonies?
I just wanted to get on that sand.
Did you bring some sand home?
Yeah, that's it over there. You see it there?
They even gave him an official container.
No, that's
what
from a
it
watch.
was,
Oh,
yeah. That's it there.
Pour a little bit out in your hand if you can.
the black sand.
It's kind of rough, isn't it?
Yeah. The black sands of Iwo Jima. You wouldn't believe it, but that island was all sulfuric. So it was a sulfur island actually, and it was warm. If you digged into it, you could put your ration if you wanted to in the sand, and it would heat it up.
No kidding.
And that was the farthest the United States Marines fought as far as being north. It was the first time the Marines had to land with a insulated jacket, and that went off in a hurry because I didn't want to. Yeah, but in the evening, cold. It was cold.
All right, well, thank you again for your time. We
You're
appreciate
welcome,
it.
sir.
Thank you.
Anytime.